Morning, Trainiacs. This is the start of a 5-day fast mimicking diet that I am going to do and document for you. I'm gonna miss calories. So, Trainiacs, that there was the heaviest I have weighed in many years. I just weighed in this morning at 167.2 pounds. That is probably the most I've weighed in 4 years. Now, granted, here we are, we're 7 days after my last race, half Ironman Atlantic City in 2019, and I've been eating like a jerk and haven't really been that motivated to do any exercise whatsoever. But over the course of 2019, what I've found is that consistently, even though I was training for a half Ironman at the beginning of the year, full Ironman distance in Challenge Roth, a half Ironman at the end of the year, even if I would restrict my calories, I would still put on weight. So what I'm going to go through over the next 5 days is a 5-day fast. Why I'm doing this is in studying it and having done it in the past, what I've learned is you get a lot of the benefits of fasting without a lot of the risks. And within those 5 days, what I'm going to measure is I'm going to measure obviously weight. I'm going to take a picture of my progress every single day. I'm going to be using the Oura Ring to measure my HRV as a measure of how much stress my body is going through. I'm going to be measuring my fasting blood glucose. At the end of the 5 days, I'm going to do 2 tests. I'm going to do this omega-3 index basic from Omega Quant as an indication of how much inflammation I have. And then I'm going to do the Viome test to measure my gut microbiome. If previous years of doing this are any indication, what this might end up resulting in is sustained weight loss over a long period of time that we have to revisit every few months, a couple times a year, to keep weight and the gut microbiome and fasting blood glucose and the ability to access fat as fuel as just kind of in check. And that's it. Kiss calories goodbye for the next 5 days, Trainiacs. I like calories. So the first thing that I found when I did this last time is the longer I could extend my first meal of the day into the day, like not do it when I was waking up, but basically by the time I got really hungry around like 10:30, 11, that made it easier because then that was just less time throughout the day that I was thinking about eating. Yeah, we're killing time. We're going for a walk, going for just a plain coffee. Poor Pete has some aggression issues that he's developed over the past year. So the muzzle's really just a training tool to try to get him out of that mental thing of like, ooh, I gotta lunge. Decaf, black, calorie-free coffee.
Half Americano.
Half Americano.
No,
super.
decaf.
Decaf Americano. High end. So it's 11 o'clock and the first meal of the day is a decaf coffee with 1 tablespoon of, it's XCT oil, but it's really just MCT oil, whatever coconut oil I've got. about 110 calories of that, and then whatever protein blend I've got. This is just a vegan protein for no reason other than this is what I got. That's breakfast. Mug makes it really delicious though. That's the end of day one. Total calories somewhere around 1,200. You're looking to do around 1,200 or 50% of your normal calorie intake. This is the easy day too. Day two, weighed in this morning at 163.4. Today's when it gets really hard. We bring the calories down even more to about 40% of what historically eat, or about 800 calories. That's not a lot. Easy little 0-minute ride. All intensity completely gone because you can't really do much when you don't have a lot of calories. At 11 a.m. this morning, I had 2 eggs, a little bit of mayo and some hot sauce, 250 calories. And now, a little bit of exogenous ketones. It's like 40 calories. That's it. All right, I gotta ride. Well, that's day 2 of eating. 800 calories. Starting to get a little headachy and a little loopy. It's a good thing we're doing a podcast right now. This is day 3, another 163.4 pounds. Yesterday was rough. That was rough. Another 800 calorie day today. So, this is lunch, day 3. And what has been my lunch the last couple days, which is my lunch today, which will probably be my lunch for the next 2 days remaining, is cream of broccoli soup, like no specific brand that I'm fussed about. And then I bake a potato, and then I put that potato in the freezer for about 10 to 15 minutes. Why I do that is because baking a potato and then cooling it turns it into resistant starch. And that resistant starch gets fed on by all the good bacteria. Essentially, you're feeding the good stuff that you want to promote in your stomach that, as just regular people living in 2019, 2020, whenever you see this, as endurance athletes who have compromised guts because there's such a lack of blood in there, and then we stuff a whole bunch of carbs in it, if that's what you're into, we gotta rectify those problems by feeding our stomach with some good resistant starch. Broccoli and potatoes and eggs, eating a lot of eggs these days, is also really high on the satiety index, so how full you feel based off of how many calories there is. I don't get a lot of calories these days, so I gotta get a lot of fullness out of not many calories. You know, if you're interested in all this gut stuff, go to triathlonTaren.com/Steph, STEPH. That's the nutritionist that's helping me with a lot of this stuff. We just interviewed her on the podcast yesterday. She is NTK's new favorite. All right, time for the final weigh-in. Okay, so why put myself through 5 days of fasting? Well, number one, it's for weight loss, but it's not just about weight loss. If you eat less, of course you're gonna lose weight. Taking in 1,200 the first day and then 800, 800, 800, 800 in the following days, you'd think that just because of that deficit in calories, I'm going to end up losing around 2.34 pounds. I ended up losing 8.6 pounds. And where does that difference lie? Well, that's kind of the purpose of this. Last year when I did this, I lost about 10 pounds. And here's the thing, For most of the year, I kept off about 7 of those pounds. That's why we do this, because it does provide a long-term benefit. Now, it might not be just a one-time only thing and then for the rest of your life you're set. Now, in my case, it might be where I have to do this 2, maybe 3 times a year in times where I'm rest. So it's also a forced rest. What I was finding as I was recording a lot of things like fasting blood glucose, cravings, energy towards the end of the day is that it was great after the 5-day fast that I did last year, but then just gradually, as the season went on, I ended up getting back into my old habits. Historically, my average fasting blood glucose that I'd take in the morning was 5.35. This is quite high. This is actually getting into pre-diabetic ranges. My average during these past 5 days was 5.1. Fasting blood glucose is going down. Number 2 is that as I measured HRV with the Oura Ring, the HRV actually increased. Normally, HRV is really only increasing if you're doing a training stimulus and the body is getting stronger. In this case, the HRV went slightly up from around 3.83 was my 7-day rolling average, and I finished at about 3.85. So that's an indication that I'm not suffering. When I actually did the 3-week keto fat adaptation process that I went through earlier this year, my HRV tanked. So it reduces weight for several months, if not a half a year. It lowers your blood glucose. It's a good thing for the body. And one of the big things for me is that I'm a compulsive eater. I have a lifetime of thinking eating makes me happy, and eating makes me really, really happy. I can't wait for breakfast. But what this did is it reset how I associated food with fuel. I started thinking of it more as, well, when I start feeling a little bit full, I am totally satiated instead of feeling like I need to stuff myself. And I started feeling full earlier. I also knew that I could go hours and hours without eating, and I'd start thinking, actually, am I hungry or am I just eating out of habit? Now, of course, what happens is I have many hangry days throughout Ironman training, and it just kind of spirals, which is why I'm thinking I need to do this 2, maybe 3 times a year to just constantly, as I get off track, reset. As I get off track, reset. And hopefully, if I do this properly over the course of several years, I might be able to reset my fasting blood glucose to a lower, not pre-diabetic level. I might be able to set my long-term mental state with being a compulsive eater to being a little bit more healthy. I might be able to get down to that really nice race weight that I've always targeted in like the high 140s. And if you talk to a lot of doctors that are up to speed on this, a lot of nutritionists, a lot of naturopaths, they say that fasting done in moderate levels, we're not talking like 30 days of water fasting, we're talking about moderate fasting, slightly lower calories, short periods like 3, 4, 5 days, intermittent fasting of 12, maybe 14 hours, not to the extremes. These are good little resets for our body that are good to include. But of course, I did all that testing yesterday, and I got a few weeks for that to come in. So just hang on. Through the magic of television, we will zoop, and I'll just really quickly share those results. So let's just wrap this up. This 5-day fast here, Trainiacs. This is actually like almost 2 months later since I've done that fast, because we finally just got the blood test back. And give you some highlights. The things that you might be worried about, wondering about, with me being low carb, high protein, and high fat, well, fat levels, cholesterol levels, all very good. The things that I was worried about with fasting blood glucose, my blood sugar being a little bit high, well, it looks like actually the meter that I might be using could be off, because my HbA1c, which is a several month rolling amount of how high or low your blood sugar are, totally fine. Some of the things that you might wonder about are like, are there microbiome issues with this intermittent fasting, 5-day fast, higher levels of fat and protein in the diet? If anything, I need to actually keep eating meat, but the right kind of meat. What it does say is that pork with super high amounts of saturated fat, not great for me. Things like salmon though, ground beef, dark meat in chicken, those are all really good. Eggs, totally good. Really just that pork that I need to avoid, which is a shame because I love natural bacon and pepperoni, and I have a lot, which probably shouldn't. But overall, there wasn't a single measurement that I look at that is really cause for concern that might be related to the higher fat, higher protein, lower carbs, intermittent fasting, having like a 12 or 10 hour eating window, or doing these 5-hour fasts. Everything is more or less on track. The big thing is that there are some things with the microbiome that over the course of several years have accumulated, but that's like more lifestyle based as opposed to diet based. From diet standpoint, everything's okay. So I hope that you found that helpful. Try this fasting thing out. The biggest thing that I take from it is just a rewiring of the brain that in my case, I get very addicted to feeling full all the time. But if I can take 5 days to rewire that, know that I don't have to be eating all the time, I don't have to feel stuffed all the time, that's a good thing. It just leads to a better relationship with food, which a lot of us triathletes struggle with. So there you go, Trainiacs. My pain is your information. Later.